Welcome to Soul Thrive, where we explore spirituality through healing trauma, shadow work, and applying the laws of the universe in order to master ourselves without the fear of the unknown.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Soul Thrive podcast. This week with us, we have Seth, who is a motivational speaker, an author, veteran, husband, and a father of two. Having endured 16 years of childhood trauma, neglect, and abuse, Seth has transformed his pain into a message of resilience and hope. He inspires others to overcome their own challenges. Seth's journey from a troubled past to a fulfilling present is a testament to the power of perseverance in the human spirit. And he also wrote a book titled Strength Beyond Shadows, where he recounts his story. Welcome, Seth.
Seth, thank you so much for coming onto our podcast. Your story is something that I think everybody needs to really understand and connect with and learn more from. You're advocating for something huge. And I think Ivana has some questions specifically.
I have so many. It's so tough to pick the first one, but maybe let's start off with what helped you turn the pain into purpose. We know so many people who are traumatized and go through so many horrific experiences, but a lot of them end up feeling powerless or maybe remain stuck feeling like a victim. But that's not your story. So what was it that helped you sort of rewrite that narrative and get you to a place where you are today?
Yeah, so you said the words pain and the purpose. And so I'll touch on purpose for a quick because purpose, I think is something that is bigger than yourself, right? Passion is for you, purpose is for others, right? And so to find purpose in all the pain, I think that's something that a lot of people try to do. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out, why did this happen to me, or why was I born in this place? Why did these things happen? Why is my life the way that it is? A lot of people try to give some sort of purpose to the suffering, right? Like, this happened to me because I was supposed to go through this so I could be this kind of person. And I think I probably have a unique approach to that. I don't think that there was any particular reason why I went through anything. And so it sounds dark on the initial approach, but bear with me. It's a very nihilistic kind of approach to it, where I don't think I went through what I went through for any reason at all, other than bad luck. I think I was just born in unfortunate circumstances with parents who were traumatized and didn't know what they were doing. I think I was just like many other people, very, very unlucky. And I don't think that there was any reason why I went through it. Once I remove all of the purpose that people want to give for all of the things that I've been through, now I can just give it purpose. It's like a blank slate, right? It's like,
Right.
I have this whiteboard and there's all these reasons why I may have gone through what I went through. And I don't believe in any of those reasons. I truly don't. I don't try to give it any kind of explanation. I just wipe this slate clean and I say, okay, I went through all these things. I'm going to give my life purpose now by doing what I'm doing, so sharing my story, speaking and traveling, writing my book, doing all those things. So that's really where I started to do better with myself, was when I started to just give myself my own purpose. I decided, this is what I want to do with my life. So that's how I turned, like, the pain, I guess you could say, into a message, into something purposeful.
Did it feel like almost like a death and a rebirth kind of concept? Almost like, sometimes we put meaning towards whatever the pain is, and we kind of can dwell in that quite. And so, giving yourself that blank slate can almost feel like birthing a new view, a way of operating, a new inspiration with that. And so I always look at like things like cyclical, like a death and a rebirth, like an opportunity to kind of reinvent the idea of how I'm going to take all of this and make it into something more. So I don't know, maybe I'm just viewing it like that.
No, I think you're right. I think that you do have to let go of who you were, let go of what happened, let go of it,
Mhm.
like letting that person die in a way, as
Mhm.
dark as that may sound.
No,
But
not
it's like
dark at all. Makes
it's like an ego death, basically.
yeah,
So
shadow part.
yeah, so you're like letting that piece of yourself go. And for me, this is something I tell people all the time. I think forgiveness is one of the most important things that I've done. I think that what holds people back is their ego, and I can explain that. But there's a lot of ways that it holds people back, in my opinion. So for me, before I started doing a lot better with my life, I had to let that person go. I had to let the person who I was go. Like, kind of the victim, kind of the hanging on
Mhm.
to the past, hanging on to my trauma. I knew I had the safety net. I knew I could blame my childhood for everything if anything
Mhm.
ever went wrong. So I had to let that person go And I had to be okay with the rebirth, I guess you could say. This new person that comes from this, who is that? I don't know who it is because I've not been there before. And I had to be okay with that person. And it really, the biggest thing is being okay with like happiness and love and security,
Right.
being okay with those things that you've never
Right.
had before, which is really interesting, because you would think like, for example, my wife who grew up completely different than I did, those things are all very natural to her. She has a very good family, and so a lot of those things are very natural to her. To me, they're unnatural. They're like it's like a second language. I maybe I wrote about it in my book at one point, or I've talked about it before. But learning love, right? That's
Mhm.
like one of the first things that you should learn as a human
Yeah.
is the language of love by your mom, by your dad, and it's something to me I didn't start learning that until I was well into my adulthood. And if you've ever tried to learn a second or a third language, you know that if you didn't do it in your childhood, it's very hard to understand. And you're always going to have a, what do they call it, accent, right? You're always going to have an accent. So even if I try to speak Spanish, I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. So
Right.
Spanish speakers will know, hey, he's not a Spanish speaker. And so it's love and affection and healing. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Even in your adulthood, people can look at me and the way that I am affectionate or loving or caring, it's just a little bit different than it is for people who grow up with that language.
Yeah, we talk a lot about that on our podcast, and I teach often that most people don't understand what that feels like because their nervous system is not attuned to that. So, like that concept around, as a child, you're learning what love is defined by that connection and that nervous system co-regulation that happens between a mother and a baby. And when that doesn't exist, then the concepts around self-love, self-regulation, the ability to know what love actually feels like without the condition or the expectation of something really is about defining how that's going to feel safe enough for you based on your nervous system and how you're going to connect with people moving forward. So, like, that's a huge thing. Your story is so much that, like, the idea that you are capable of looking at that from that point of view is just amazing. Because I work with people who are in trauma, and I've gone through my own trauma, my own experiences. We talk a lot about that. And yeah, some people get really stuck in that victim mentality. They get stuck in that, I'm not capable of love, or I'm never going to be lovable, or I'm never going to be good enough. And I think there's a huge power in being able to have that ego death, to move in there and saying, no, I can attune to this feeling, which is beautiful.
Yeah. And what did that ego death feel like? Because, I mean, we can all relate, if you've suffered trauma and you have a set of beliefs about yourself, about who you are and what you deserve and what is possible for you and what's not. And I find that the mental stories are really, really loud. And sometimes they'll prevent you from maybe going after certain opportunities or letting certain people in or letting love in. So, what was that process like for you?
Well, I said it a minute ago and I'll kind of touch on it real quick. I had to start with forgiveness. And I tell everybody, because forgiveness is something that people struggle with. Why would I forgive somebody who hurt me? Why would I forgive the man who abused me? My mom, my dad, the people who weren't there for me. And for me, what it is it's like having this cloud over my head and it's attached to a string. And if I never forgive them, I could just bring them with me wherever I go. And I could just say, look, right here, like I've got all this stuff behind me. I've got this dark cloud. I've got this doom and gloom type thing that's always around me. Forgiveness is ownership. So for you to take responsibility of your life and to be happy, to be positive, to do good things, that is ownership. It's you taking responsibility of your life. To do that, you have to forgive all those things in the past. If you don't, you're going to hang on to them and bring them with you, and that's going to be your safety net. Every time something goes wrong, every time you react a certain way, you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to eat right, you don't want to read the book, you don't want to do the work, it's all because you have this trauma, right? When you forget it, you just let it go. I started with, I think there's like extreme ownership, which is just taking control of everything, taking responsibility for everything. And then there's like radical forgiveness, which is just like another level of un maybe realistic forgiveness, right? Where people will say, why would I forgive this person? I don't care. Everything's forgiven. I don't care what you've done to me. It's all forgiven. And I had to do that because I had to just get it all off the plate. Because if I could blame anybody for one thing, I would blame them for another thing, and I'd blame them for another thing, and I'd blame them for another thing. So for me, I had to just clear the slate. I just said, look, it's all my fault. I don't care. And people say, well, Seth, you were 10, you were 12, you were 13, whatever. I don't care. It's all my fault. I don't care. And
Mhm.
I'll work back from there, right? I'll
Yes.
work back from there. And as I gain control of my emotions, gain control of my life,
Mhm.
over time, I work back like, okay, obviously it wasn't my fault when I was 10, 11, 12. None of that was my fault, really. But the reality of it is that when I took the mindset of like, okay, I don't care. It's all my fault. I'll take responsibility. I will fix my life. That radical mindset is really what helped me climb out of the hole that I was in.
Mhm.
And, I use that in a lot of different things. My identity. So I started to give myself different identities, right? I was a victim and I was a survivor as a young man. And so what I did was I joined the military. And that was the first time I put on a uniform, put something on that I could wear with pride, that I could say, hey,
Mhm.
I'm a soldier. Like I'm a United States Army soldier, which was a big thing. It was a new identity that I could wear with pride. It wasn't like I'm a traumatized, sexual abuse survivor or whatever. So it was something I could be proud of. And then, when I got out of the military, I ran ultra marathons, and then I competed in jujitsu, and then now I'm a power lifter. And so I have all these different stages and platforms and places that I perform. These are all identities that are positive and inspiring and hopeful and motivating. So these are all positive identities that I can associate myself with, which gives me the self worth. It gives me the confidence. I've taken the action kind of thing to have all this. So, yeah, a big part of that, like ego death, was just letting all those negative things go and start building myself into somebody new. I think we are all worthy innately. Like humans, we have this innate sense of worth or the level of worth. We're all humans, we're all deserving of things. But if you struggle with confidence and self worth, well, then go and do something that proves you are worthy, that proves you should be confident about something. I mean, yeah, you would have low self worth because
Mhm.
you're not taking any action. But as
Mhm.
soon as you start taking action, you build the undeniable proof. Undeniable proof by virtue of action creates confidence. Confidence without proof is just illusion. So you can sit in front of the mirror all day long and say, I'm beautiful, I'm loved, I'm all these things. But if you're not stepping out of the bathroom and going and doing the work to actually prove those
Mhm.
things, it's just illusion. It only lasts so long. So I think that that's a very tough thing to do, to go out there and to change who you are as a person. But if you can take the responsibility over your life and you can do those things, once you start doing it, it becomes second nature, and then 6 months, a year from now, you're a completely different person.
Yeah. I think what I'm also gathering from you is that you're someone who isn't afraid to face a lot of the things that have happened, and you're giving it a voice in a way that feels very inspiring and motivating. So you're not carrying the shame that most people would, because it's the shame that keeps you locked in that cycle and that victimhood and the inability to face that pain. And you know, I think what I'm also hearing is this reparenting yourself in a lot of ways, being the parent that you didn't have, or providing that masculine support that you needed so that you can actualize and create a different plan for yourself. Because when we're children, we're always looking for guidance and we're not having that. And then you add trauma on top of that. Then you add shame, which pulls you away from your authenticity. It pulls you away from your innate nature of being the potential that you could be. And that's why most people get stuck on the couch. Like you said, they don't know how to get out of that cyclical pattern because they don't know how to face the shame. They don't know how to place the information in a way where, there's most people who are stuck in shame. It's like they're so worried about someone else's opinion about what their story is.
Yep.
Instead of being like, hold on a second, this is my story. This is what happened to me. This is what impacted me. I think you're forgiving versions of yourself that didn't have the guidance or didn't know the motivation or didn't have the parent to motivate you to be the better version of yourself. And so this ego death that you're referring to is this like ability. And I think this is a power in itself and a gift in itself, that you have the ability to face it, that shame that a lot of people don't. And that to me feels super powerful because you're advocating for people to do the same. Like I just think about myself yesterday. I was going to post a reel up about something that happened to me when I was 12 years old. And I literally started bawling. I was like, why am I crying? Like, I know this is nothing, but why am I crying? And then I refused to post it. I don't want to be vulnerable with that. And I thought to myself, and then I deleted it, which I regret doing because I thought to myself, like, why did I do that? Why didn't I just post me being so vulnerable in this moment? Because that 12-year-old version of me needed me in that moment to just say it, and then the empowerment would kick in after that. So there's still like so much work there for me to do around those experiences myself. And I know other people too would love to do more of that, which is amazing. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't understand what you're saying. I think the reason why my story resonate. I think about this all the time. Like, why does my story resonate with people so well? Why is it so impactful? And I listen to other people's stories too. And I think one of the biggest things is I speak about it just very plainly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not emotionally charged. There are points in my story where I cry, but they're truly, almost tears
Well,
of happiness. I'm not like angry, and I'm not mad about what happened to me. I'm not mad about my childhood. It sucks. It's very unfortunate. But I think a lot of times when people are thinking about the things that happened to them, they're so angry about the situation, or they're so like distraught. Maybe not angry, but just they're emotionally charged about the situation. Whereas I can sit here and just tell you plainly, hey, these things happen. I've had opportunities where I could have ran away. I could have stopped going back. I could have told the police. I could have reported. All of those things are true. I think one thing that holds people back, like you're kind of talking about shame here, is they won't admit that. For me, it was true. I
mm-hmm.
could have called the police. I was 12, I was 13, I was 14, I was 15 years old. I could have stopped going back to this guy's house. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Understand why I went back, and I understand the whole situation, but there are both things can be true at the same time. It wasn't
For
my
sure.
fault, but I could have stopped
For
going.
sure.
Right. And I think so many people that are victims or survivors or whatever, this is a part of it. It's like when they start telling their story, it's like, well, don't ask me that question because that's offensive or that's triggering. Why would you ask me that? You're victim blaming, you're victim shaming. For me, you can ask me anything you want. I'm going to explain it all to you
Yeah.
because that is the obligation that I carry when I
Right.
decided to be public with my story.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of the value that I bring when I do present to people is you can ask me whatever you want and I'll answer the question to the best of my ability. You're not
Mm-hmm.
going to trigger me or make me mad or anything like that. I understand that it's very complicated and complex, and I know you're trying to learn. The same way that people are trying to learn, I'm trying to learn. And I have people that ask me questions, and I'm like, you know what? I've never thought about that. But now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, maybe this is why this happened, XYZ. There's a bunch of times where that's happened for me. So shame and embarrassment, those things holding people back, it's shameful. It's embarrassing. Yeah, what happened to me is embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I want to. I don't walk up to people and just tell them, "Hey, these things happened when I was a kid." It is embarrassing, but I'm okay with that. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I spill the milk at the gas station, that's embarrassing. If I trip and I fall in the parking lot, it's embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to say it's not embarrassing. It's not shameful. It is, but it's okay. These things happen, and in fact, every single time I share my story, every single time,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in person, on TikToks, on Instagram, YouTube, whatever, every single time, there are this flood of people that are me too, right? Every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time, my whole life growing up, I thought it was only me. So to get off the couch, I think one of the things that would have helped, actually, the things that did help me get off the couch, so to speak, was hearing other men talk about it because I'm a
Right.
man, right?
Yeah.
So hearing other men talk about it, one of the things with storytelling, this is the beautiful part of storytelling, is when you hear somebody else telling their story, you can just sit back and all you have to do is listen. And they're going to say things and they're going to be like, "Oh my goodness, that's exactly how I felt." But when you're telling your story, it's hard to explain your feelings, your emotions, because you're trying to put the story and the emotions and the logic, you're trying to put all that in the air for people to catch. And it's just hard. So
Mm-hmm.
when you hear somebody else tell the story, they're going to say things that resonate, and it may just be one thing or two things. And that's why when I share my story, it's so helpful for people because they hear something click and they're like, "That's how I felt." For me, it's shame and embarrassment and kind of getting off the couch and fighting through those feelings with your story, what happened to you.
Yeah, you guys like jumped right into my question because that was literally the next thing I was going to say. Because talking about shame and your ability to be vocal to speak that truth, and you write that sort of your courage to share your story with others offers the validation and the understanding that other survivors who hear your story feel, because they often feel unlovable, they feel silenced, and they feel just like you did. I'm the only one. Something's wrong with me. Like, why did this happen to me? And so when you share that story, it validates their experience, which is like step one. So was that part of sort of that courage to tell your truth?
Yeah, I knew when I was 10 years old, I read the book A Child Called It. That was the first time I'd ever read a book or heard of another child going through something relative to what I was going through. Read that book, and I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember being 10 years old, coming home and thinking to myself, one day I'll write a book because this guy wrote a book. This guy went through all this and he wrote a book and it means that much to me. One day I'll write a book. And here you go. I wrote a book.
Yes.
A couple years later, I saw a motivational speaker. His name is Eric Thomas. I saw him get on the stage, deliver this incredible speech. And it was motivating, it was powerful. But what was more powerful was the fact that he was homeless as a teenager. He didn't have a father. He grew up in a single parent household. He didn't have a degree. He dropped out of high school, got his GHD, and then they got his PhD. And now he's the number one motivational speaker in the world. When I was 12 years old, I saw that video and I said, one day I'll get on stage and I'll speak to people. And then 20 years later, I was sitting in my garage after work and I pulled up a YouTube video of this man named Clark Fredericks from Soft White Underbelly. And Clark Fredericks was brutally violated by a man when he was 12, 13 years old. That was the same age I was the first time it happened to me. And Clark sat in front of a camera, very composed, told the whole story. And Clark is imposing. He's a big, strong, powerful man. And when he told that story, I was sitting in my garage and I had already been speaking. I had already been traveling and speaking a little bit. My book was not out yet, but I had already been traveling and speaking a little bit. But I had never told anybody about my sexual abuse because I was a man and I was scared to talk about those things. I didn't want to tell anybody any of that. And I saw Clark Fredericks do this on this YouTube channel with millions of views. And I said, okay, Seth, like you gotta go and tell this part of your story. This is the part that you're holding out, and this is the most powerful part of your story. And so I saw another person share that. And for me, as soon as I started talking about my story, that shame, that embarrassment, that little monkey that's on your back, it was gone. It was gone immediately. I posted the first video, like a 3-minute clip of me saying, hey guys, I'm going to start talking about this. And these things happened to me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And that video didn't even blow up. It didn't get any kind of crazy recognition, but the monkey was off my back. I could walk around and just be myself all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And I like how the universe is giving you little tidbits of information at a young age, which I think is like the little miracles. It's almost like you knew, there's a part of you that knew, I'm going through this. This is my story. This is my experience right now. I'm a little kid, but your brain had conceptualized that you're going to write a book and that you're going to be someone who's going to go out there and talk and communicate your story. And that to me is really powerful because we don't register the little miracles that are always showing up in our reality and guiding us and helping us and kind of inspiring us to be the best version of ourselves. Did you have anyone in your life besides like, on YouTube or whatever in your life? Like, you grew up in your home with your family dynamics and then you had this individual do this to you, but did you have anyone else come into your life and like, even just be kind and like inspire you from a different perspective or, encourage you in any which way? Or was it just like, like I'm stuck in this and I don't know what to do?
So interesting question. And I'll give you a very interesting answer. Is something that I think as a lot of people came to terms with, it would help them. It's true for their situation. So I did have people that came through in very important times. And I always felt like I had an empty cup. I always felt like my cup was running out of love. And I always felt like random people came into my life and poured a little bit in there every now and then, kind of kept me going. But there was nobody that was consistent. The only person that was consistently there to help me overcome everything was the same person who abused me.
Yeah. I figured. Yeah.
Yep. So, and that's how these situations happen, right?
Yeah.
Because, most of the time, actually 78% of the time is somebody in your own house. Over 90% of the time is somebody in your immediate circle of trust. Okay. So most of the time, the person that's doing the most horrific things to you,
Yes.
they are the ones who are teaching you how to ride a bike, eating breakfast with you, teaching you how to do your homework, helping you navigate bullying at school, all of those things. And that's who the man who abused me, Armando Vasquez, Mondo for short. Mondo was that person for me. He was arguably the best thing and the worst thing that happened to me at the same exact time. And that is something that when you know the nature of my story and the details of it, it's like, how can you even say that? But that's something that I've come to terms with. If it was not for him, I would very likely be addicted, homeless. I would be one of those negative statistics, But because of him, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm one of the few who made it out alive and led a very successful, promising life, right? But I mean, he helped me through my mom's addiction and abuse and
Mhm.
violence. He helped me through school, through bullying, through the process of where my grandparents adopted me. I wanted to go back and live with my mom because I felt bad. And he was
Right.
telling me, listen, like, why did you go back and live with her? He sent me off the streets on the weekends. If it was not for him, I would have likely been out getting in fights, getting in trouble, all of those things. Every weekend I was at his house,
Right.
albeit he was abusing me. But nonetheless, he was, as much as a protector, he was an abuser, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of these people, which is what makes, quickly, I'll say this is what makes sexual trauma some of the
Yes.
hardest trauma to overcome, is
100%.
because you just have memories of this person. And whether it's your mom, your dad, your grandpa, your uncle, your best friend, whatever it is, it's this person that was supposed to protect you in the most vulnerable moments of your life. And instead, they hurt you. And that same person you have all of these positive, happy memories with, you know. So that's what makes it's very similar to combat PTSD or first responder PTSD. You have this person that you love and you work with, and then all of a sudden they're taken from you. It's very confusing to your brain. It's very hard to navigate. So yeah, to answer your question, he was the only person that was truly consistent in that regard.
Yeah, that's such a common theme, I think, when I'm even working with my own clients and my own story as well, because I was molested as a child by a babysitter. And so you just don't know, right? Because it just feels like this person showing me love and attention and care, and they're making me feel safe. And then at the same time, they're hurting me. And that's just such a paradox because it really is something that so many people, and then they wonder why people don't speak up as much as they should because it's that duality, right? They can't conceptualize or tell the difference between, well, this person did this, but then at the same time, they're doing this. And that's part of the grooming process, too, I think, right? That's what grooming looks like. That's what abuse, cyclical patterns of abuse. Even just like if you look at domestic violence, it's the same pattern, right? It's like, oh, he abused me, but he brought flowers at home and he's telling me he loves me and he feels guilty for the behavior that he's doing. And then a week goes by and then he does it all over again. So, it's hard, but I think like if we put a like have awareness of two truths can be what they are, then there's so much power in being able to say then what makes more sense to me and what direction am I going to take this with, which like you said, you could have gone the complete other route, addiction, because it's all you knew in your childhood and that was your nervous system regulation with your mother, and getting into other things or homelessness or whatever else, but you didn't. So it's just like it's hard to conceptualize, but I get it. And I think a lot of people listening to this will understand this.
Do you still have a relationship with him?
No, no. I saw when I reported him when I was almost 16 years old. I was a month away from being 16. It's a long story there, but I reported him. He went to prison, and to be clear, I wouldn't have a relationship with him
Right,
regardless. But he went to
right.
prison. He died 9 years into prison. He was only given 10 years. For 10 years of abuse between me and another boy, he was given 10
Wow.
years in prison. They offered him a plea deal. So he died back in 2019. And I don't, so I'm, he's dead. Now, I have had people ask if I could talk to him. I would talk to him. I would just ask him what happened to him. I'm not mad at him. I'm not angry. I just want to know what happened to him and what was his thought process the whole time. Because I've gone back to his apartment. I've gone back to,
Mm.
the town that he lived in, and I've kind of looked around and all that. So I don't have a relationship with him. And I would never really encourage people to like feel like they need to have a relationship
Right.
with him, because it's their mom, it's the dad, it's their uncle, it's somebody in the family. I've had people come to me and say that, where they're like, this person abused me and they're still in my life.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do I do? And, that's very tricky. Me personally, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And I'm not saying it's like a hateful, vengeful thing or whatever, but it's no, this
No.
person hurt you. This person did some horrendous things. They need to be punished.
Yeah. It's just interesting that your response was, I would go back and ask him what was going on with him. Like you're coming from a place of
Self
understanding.
understanding, and there's an
Yeah.
emotional immaturity here, and yeah, that takes a really huge.
Well, that comes from Dr. Bruce Terry. His book, What Happened to You, is one of the most powerful books
Mhm.
I've ever read. In fact, I give him credit for most. I mean, I've never been to therapy or anything like that. So reading his books was my therapy. I read 2 of his books, and in that book, What Happened to You, he talks about it. Whereas we shouldn't ask people what's wrong with you, because that's what a lot of people would say. Like,
Yeah.
why would you do
It's
that?
like,
Why would
what
you hurt that
happened to you?
person? What's
Yeah.
wrong? No, what happened to you, man? Like, what love did you not get? What affection did you not get? Or what damage did you get? So the neglect is just as damaging as the trauma, the abuse. So there was something wrong with him. It's just the same thing with my parents. That's why I'm able to choose forgiveness so easily. My mom and my dad did not have good parents, they did not have good upbringings. I can't be mad at them for that. What they did was not right, and I'm not defending them. I can't just sit here and be mad at them for what happened. I have been forgiven for a lot of things that I've done wrong. I have to forgive people.
Generational trauma. That's a whole other conversation, right, Seth?
Yeah,
Seth, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. Your message, your inspiration, all of it. Your book, you can, if you just raise it up, people could see it. Yes, please
And we'll
get on
link
the
it.
showers.
We'll
We're
link
gonna
it in
link
the.
everything. Please read his book. Go to his Facebook. Listen to his story, the full story. I think everyone needs to learn more about trauma in general. So I wanted to thank you so much for coming on our podcast. I appreciate it.
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you all as well. Thank you.